Hello and welcome to Magic Meets Melanin, where we take a deep dive into the world of fantasy. I'm your host Bree, and I'm excited to be your guide on this journey. I hope you don't mind, I'm a little stuffy today, but I'm really excited about this week's episode as it's the first full-length episode. This week I'll be reviewing Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I'll also be discussing a trilogy that is very near and dear to my heart called the Beka Cooper Trilogy by Tamora Pierce. And lastly, I'm really excited about this week's Magic Melanin segment because I got to sit down with author W.M. Walters and discuss her book Lady Lavender, as well as book boyfriends and more. So stay tuned because you don't want to miss it. Today I'll be providing a review on Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, where I'll share my honest thoughts, as well as some common tropes and themes you can find in the book, along with the rating, and whether or not it was worth the purchase. So let's get on with the synopsis. Everyone expected Violet Sorrengail to die during her first year at Basgiath War College, Violet included. But threshing was only the first impossible test meant to weed out the weak-willed, the unworthy, and the unlucky. Now the real training begins, and Violet's already wondering how she'll get through. It's not just that it's grueling and maliciously brutal, or even that it's designed to stretch the writer's capacity for pain beyond endurance. It's the new Vice Commandant, who's made it his personal mission to teach Violet exactly how powerless she is, unless she betrays the man she loves. Although Violet's body might be weaker and frailer than everyone else's, she still has her wits and a will of iron. And leadership is forgetting the most important lesson Basgiath has taught her. Dragon riders make their own rules. But a determination to survive won't be enough this year, because Violet knows the real secret hidden for centuries at Basgiath War College. And nothing, not even dragonfire, may be enough to save them in the end. So my honest thoughts and feelings about this book, I don't even know where to begin, truthfully, because Rebecca, you have such a wonderful ability to lull readers into a false sense of security and then take them on this wild roller coaster ride where things are just thrown to the wind, and I love it. I love it and I hate it all at the same time. This book picks up where we left off in Fourth Wing, so there's a family reunion happening, and from there we also begin to learn more about Xaden, his past, as well as the other marked ones, their parents, and what they were actually trying to do. We even begin to learn more about the dragons and how new dragons are born. Additionally, we see our female lead and our male lead deal with some jealousy in the relationship as a past girlfriend is thrown in the mix. And we also get to see Violet grow a bit more with her powers. She's actually learning how to control them strategically instead of just, blasty blasty, hope I hit something. Without giving too much away, the ending in true Yaros fashion will leave you agape, stunned, and possibly feeling like you need to cry for 3 days straight. So, themes and tropes that you can expect. You can expect themes of love, struggle against authoritative figures, as well as forbidden love, because a lot of people don't want Violet with Xaden and vice versa, They don't feel like they're a good match. Or espionage, that sort of thing, resilience, personal growth, and of course, death. Death is going to be a key one. Oh, also, there are a lot of spicy scenes. The Iron Flame is a lot more spicier than Fourth Wing, so be prepared for that. Want to pick it up. So overall, I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. 4 out of 5 simply because the emotional damage. I'm sure some of y'all can relate to that. I also kind of got annoyed with the ex-girlfriend trope simply because the way Xaden's ex was acting. I know that she's meant to be annoying, possibly, but still, you know? So what really matters, was it worth the purchase? Yes, I'm happy with my purchase. I spent $29.99 on the hard copy book from Barnes and Noble. However, you can definitely get it cheaper by getting the paperback or the ebook version slash Kindle version or whatever e-reader you use. I don't know about you, but I am both excited and terrified for what Book 3, Onyx Storm, has in store for us all. Coming up next, how you can up your reading experience with this week's mystical pairing, more about the Beka Cooper trilogy by Tamora Pierce, and of course, an in depth interview with W.M. Walters in her book, Lady Lavender. So grab some snacks, get comfortable, because you won't want to miss this. This week's mystical pairing is inspired by the graduation celebration in Iron Flame. We see our characters enjoying this beverage during times of celebration. So, what better way to sit back and relax and read this book than with the same drink? Here's what you'll need to get started. First, some vodka. Next, some freshly squeezed lemons, some lavender simple syrup, and if you want some fizz, some French lemonade or some lemon flavored sparkling water. Once you've assembled your ingredients, you're going to fill a cocktail shaker with ice, add 2 ounces of lavender syrup, juice from half a lemon, and 2 ounces of vodka. You're going to want to give it a nice good shake. Pour it into 2 glasses and top with French lemonade or lemon flavored sparkling water. And there you have it. Enjoy! Up next, I get nostalgic while discussing a favorite trilogy of mine, the Beka Cooper trilogy, and let's not forget interview with none other than W.M. Walters. You really don't want to miss the conversation that we had. It was amazing. Ever since I had the brainchild for this podcast, this trilogy has been stuck in the forefront of my mind. So, what exactly is the Beka Cooper trilogy? Well, the trilogy follows a young woman from her early days in trying to build herself up as one of the provost's dogs, which essentially is like a task force that helps mitigate crimes and solve crimes and stuff like that. I will say that this is a complicated read, especially if you're new to fantasy, but the world building is so solid and the way that the characters are written are just so amazing. The attention to detail, the personalities, everything about it. And if you're into stubborn, headstrong, or you like your female characters to, kind of own it and not be frail, this is for you. Because, girl, Beka Cooper is not one to be messed with, okay? She will have you landed on your ass in a quick minute. Of course, we see how her stubbornness and things like that are a fault as you go through the series, but I also appreciate the fact that it looks at the characters and their lives, so we also get to see how they are outside of work, see the relationships they have, the relationships they build. I will say that there is sex in these, but it's not in your face, and you're not getting anything super explicit. It's kind of just natural, just kind of like it is in real life. I will say that you will love and you will hate some characters. You will wish some were along for the ride later books, but you also get like a happy ending. So if you're one of those happy ending people, to me it was a happy ending. The trilogy ends on a positive note. It also sets the stage or takes place, I believe, 200 years before her next series that she wrote, which is called The Song of the Lioness. So we get more of that same universe with that next series. Magic plays a role in this world, but it's pretty normalized. We see Beka use her skills with both physical strength as well as magic throughout the series. And if you like crime or mysteries and things like that, I feel like this is a really good series for you to pick up, even though it is a little complicated. Honestly, I feel like it won't even matter at that point because once you get into it, it really sucks you in and transports you into this world that Becca is in, as well as her colleagues, and all the crime, all the mystery, all the things that are going on. You just get sucked right into it and transported into her world. and it's very action packed. So if you're looking for some action as well, this is a good one. I would say if you enjoy Fourth Wing, you actually would enjoy this because it's action packed, it has the mystery, it has all those similar elements, but with much more depth and world building. These books are a little long, so if you're not used to long reads, they can be intimidating. However, go for it and you let me know if you don't like it. But this series holds a lot of love and nostalgia for me because it was one of the first fantasy books that I can ever remember picking up and being obsessed with. And I'm one of those few people who I just can't go back and reread stuff. So if I pick something up and I'm willing to reread it, that means I really enjoyed it and it really means something to me. So much, in fact, that I'm actually looking for some of the original copies because one of the things that I have a passion for is thrift shopping my books or thrifting my books. So I'm really looking for some Beka Cooper books out there. So if anyone has any hints or knows anybody who has some copies and probably doesn't want some, let a girl know. I'd really appreciate it. With this trilogy, you can actually find a lot of extras on Tamora Pierce's website. So if you're looking for ways to actually pronounce names, glossary of the terms that they use in the world and all that, you can find it on her website. Now, the series is broken up into 3 books, and they're all kind of named after dogs because that's kind of the system they used for their work. So, the first one is called Beka Cooper Terrier. So, she's just starting out, and then as you move up in ranks, the next one would be Beka Cooper Bloodhound. The last one would be Beka Cooper Mastiff, like the dog. So each book is named after a dog because the Provost Guard is known as dogs. I would also say for those who are really into anime, this might be a little obscure, but if you like Black Butler, you would like this. They're very similar in certain ways. And yeah, so if you're a Black Butler girly, if you watch anime, this is like a book version, but with more magic. As usual, you can request books from your bookstore or the library. However, if you want to buy the ebook version, you can get each book for $9.99 at the moment, and the physical copies range from like $11.99 to $16.99. So it's really just up to you. But I highly suggest that you check this series out and let me know what you think of it if you do in the comments. Now, the moment that we've all been waiting for, my interview with W.M. Walters. I would just like to say before we get into the interview, what a sweet individual. What a sweet woman, y'all. She was so open to doing this interview, and she is such a joy. Like, I can feel the joy and the positivity and the encouragement just coming off her in waves. And if you're one of those people who struggles with putting yourself out there, you really need to listen to this interview because she gives some solid advice that I think not only myself can pull from, but you can as well. So without further ado, here's the interview. Thank you so much for joining me today, Whitney, on the Magic Meets Melanin podcast. I'm super excited to talk to you about your experience as not only an author, your interest in fantasy, and of course, your book, Lady Lavender.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
How did you know you wanted to become an author?
That's a really good question because writing for me was such a private thing in the beginning. Going back to school days, I would carry around notebooks with like all of my stories in it. One day, I just woke up. It was just like, you know what? I think I want the world to see what my imagination's about. So, literally, a wake up one day and decided to do it.
I actually relate heavily to the whole reading a lot, carrying around a notebook full of stories, and then being kind of very private. I was actually speaking to one of my closest friends the other day, and I was like, I want to write a book. Interviewing all these people has made me want to write a book.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think you should write a book. I think everyone should. It's such a great outlet for you. Like I love it.
So I know that you have a background in kind of being a ghostwriter and copywriting and all of that. So how has that experience helped you with your publishing?
Honestly enough, being a ghostwriter, it's it was a lot of fun, surprisingly enough. But when I was a ghostwriter, my hands weren't really in the publishing part. So I was just kind of like the background. They would just, hand me the work and I would do the work and then hand it back to them. So with the publishing aspect, I kind of had to figure that out on my own once I started publishing myself.
Yeah, that seems like a lot to handle. What's one thing that writing this book has helped you learn about yourself?
Definitely that I have a lot more patience than I thought I did. I definitely feel like, in the beginning I was like, you know what, this was a bad idea. But I overcame that. I definitely overcame that with myself. And I was like, Whitney, just have patience with the process and everything's gonna happen the way it should. So you definitely need a lot of patience with this, especially with the publishing process. It's not as hard as people think, but you do need that patience though.
I can imagine, especially if you're, going solo, self-publishing, you kind of have to allow yourself to have grace as you know, start on this new endeavor because you've never done it before.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Are there any books or other sources that you read regularly that help you with your creative process when it comes to creating stories?
Oddly enough, lately, I mean, I've always been a heavy fantasy reader, of course, and read a lot of fantasy books. But lately, what's been helping me is a lot of nonfiction books, books kind of like self-help kind of books, because in this process, I've experienced a lot of imposter syndrome. So I've reached out and looked for books, for example, like The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Peale. Books like that to try to keep myself in a positive light, like a positive mindset. So I don't have that imposter syndrome when it comes to my writing. Like I keep myself feeling like I can do this, like I can put it out here and I can, keep the journey going.
That's a very interesting source to pull from. And you're right about the imposter syndrome. I think that's another reason why I myself haven't really tried to go into publishing something. And I think as creatives, when we make something, we're always our harshest critics and we'll think, no one wants this. This is garbage. Like, this is so bad. But once you put it out there, people tell you, this is amazing. You're just like, what?
Exactly. It's a shocker because that imposter syndrome is no joke. It really is. It definitely comes from somewhere within, and you really have to battle it. But I definitely feel like it's a battle worth winning. It definitely is. Taking on and winning.
So, what actually inspired you to write Lady Lavender?
Lady Lavender, it actually came about as a prequel in the beginning, but I kind of rerouted from that as I dove deeper into my storyline and its characters. So with Lady Lavender, like I wanted to tell like a story from a different character's perspective because it's a part of a world called the realm of dark affairs, and I originally had another story that I was going to start off the whole world or the whole series with, but I wanted a different perspective, so I decided like to kind of set that groundwork for the realm of dark affairs. So that's what brought about Lady Lavender and Dahlia's story.
I often find sometimes that when it comes to fantasy, some people lack the world building, which leaves a disconnect where you're like, okay, I don't really understand, what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Or they focus so much on world building that it kind of takes away from the characters. But I find that Lady Lavender is very balanced. So it's like I get a very fleshed out understanding of what's happening around me while also having those emotional connections and growing attachments to characters.
Perfect. Thank you. That makes me feel good because I always worry that I don't. I was like, oh, well, I guess that goes back to that imposter syndrome. It's like, did I actually flesh out the characters how I want to? Did I flesh out the world how I want to? Am I oversharing in some areas? Like it definitely, that definitely makes me feel good to know that it's balanced out.
So what was the most challenging scene or chapter to write in this book and why?
Okay. I would definitely say the most challenging scene. It's a specific scene in Lady Lavender. Without revealing too much, I'm sure you'll get to it if you haven't already. But it's a female character in the book. Her name is Mira. She does have a painful experience that comes about unexpectedly for her. And I can say it was very difficult to put it on paper. And I feel that honestly, that it's the most unfantasy part of the fantasy, if that made sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. What character do you like the most and why?
I definitely love Dahlia the most, the main character. Honestly, I feel like she sees things as what they could be versus what they have to be. So what I mean by that is like if there's like a broken cup, she would say, "Okay, I can fix this. I can make it into something new." Versus someone who would be like, "Oh, this is trash," and throw it away. So I guess I like her positive aspect, which can be seen as a little naive, to be honest, but I feel like that's what helps her character grow, especially on the journey she embarks. So I really love Dahlia.
And that's one thing I've noticed so far with reading. Dahlia, I was like, she seems a little bit naive, but then you catch those glimpses. She's actually pretty witty, but she doesn't show it. So yeah, she's kind of fumbling around in this world because she's obviously been sheltered. But then you see her in these moments and she's just kind of grounded. So for instance, Mira's gotten them into a situation.
Yep.
Homegirl's freaking out. And Nadia's just like, well, we can't really do anything about it. So what can we do?
Right.
And it's in those moments I'm like, yeah, you're a little naive, but at the same time, you're kind of wise.
Yeah.
Who's your least favorite character and why?
My least favorite character. It's definitely a character named Solus. I absolutely do not like him, and it's just so funny because I wrote him and I can't stand his existence. He's this guy. He feels like the world kind of belongs to him and will treat you that way. And I feel like he's misogynistic. He's narcissistic. He's cocky, he's just all around bad. And in a way, you can say he's the antagonist of the story. But yeah, I would definitely say Solus is my least favorite.
You need the bad characters to balance out the good. You can't have just good. You need a little bit of both.
Yep, absolutely.
So as far as book boyfriends go, do you have one at the moment? If so, who and from what book and why?
I do. His name is Leo or Leonardo. He's from Bittersweet, my new book that's coming out. So, I would definitely say he's incredibly handsome and he screams boyfriend material. So I just love him to death. Without giving away too much, I'm gonna say it's definitely Leo.
Could you tell us more about Bittersweet and what readers can expect?
Yeah. Bittersweet is my vampire novel. On the Realm of Dark Affairs timeline, it doesn't necessarily connect to Lady Lavender, but it takes place in the same world as Lady Lavender. The only difference is it takes place in like I guess you can say present day versus Lady Lavender, which is a little bit colonial, takes place some years ahead. So, Bittersweet focuses more on the vampires in my world versus Lady Lavender, who focuses more on the werewolves and the fae. But it it definitely focuses on the lives of vampires, and it follows a journalist. Her name is Raylene. She ends up falling into the depths of this vampire club called Black Eden, where she ends up kind of, no pun intended, but biting off more than she can chew, as you can say, as she develops new friends and new enemies, type of deal. So that's what Bittersweet is about. It's just the vampire aspect of my world.
How long on average does it take you to write a book?
To be honest, as long as I am focused, like as long as it's at the forefront of my mind, it can literally take me about I'd say about 3 to 5 months. It's usually three, because I write pretty quick. I can write really fast. I think the editing process for me is probably the longest part because I keep going back and changing this and changing that and all that stuff. But the original, just get through the whole novel, I'd say about 3 months or 3 to 5.
That's amazing. That's so fast.
Thank you.
And it's like, and just knowing that and knowing the quality that I see in your writing, you definitely have an innate talent because wow. I can't even imagine myself doing that. I feel like it would take me at least a year. And then I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, so
Yeah.
I would have to keep going back and be like, no, no.
Yeah, I understand. Like one of my best friends, she told me one day to make sure you get through the book. She told me that I should write drunk and edit sober. So basically not literally drunk, but just go
Yeah.
through it, and don't worry about any edits, don't worry about what you want to change or anything. Just fly through that thing. And then once you come to your editing, then make sure you're sober enough to be like, okay, this is what I want to fix, what I want to change, and all of that. And that ends up making the writing, I think, process a lot quicker for people, in my opinion.
You mentioned that you like to read self-improvement books and self-help books, and that kind of helps keep you motivated when you're feeling like giving up a bit. Is there any other things or rituals that you do to help encourage yourself?
Honestly, when it comes to that, I just think about my dad. He, of all people, was the last person to give up on something. And before he had passed away, he made sure to tell me to always, keep going. Like, there's no such thing as failing, but there is such thing as giving up. I just think about his words, or I think about, that mindset he pushed on me. And I'm like, okay, I can't quit. I got to keep going on this journey because who else is going to do it? No one's going to do it for me. So I got to do it.
Those are very powerful last
Mm.
words to say to anyone. And I feel like especially as you get older, life as I like to say, and you kind of sometimes feel like, oh, I'm too old to do that or do this. So if you could describe Lady Lavender using 5 emojis, what emojis would you use?
Oh gosh. I would definitely use, oh, that's a fun one. I would use the emoji, all three of the monkey emojis, where they have the ears closed, the eyes closed, and the mouth closed. So I would use all three of them. I would use a rainbow emoji, and I would use these stars, like the sparkling star emojis.
What would you like potential readers to know about your book, Lady Lavender?
Definitely that it's a fanciful journey. I definitely think it's a journey that a lot of women could possibly relate to. Lady Lavender would be something that a lot of girl power lookers would be interested in reading about. And to, keep an open mind while you're reading it. You never know what would tickle your fancy as you go through the book.
Where can readers find and purchase or pre order your books?
Lady Lavender is on Amazon, but you can also purchase them off of my Shopify page, Lady Lavender, as well as pre-order Bittersweet on my Shopify page. So I have those links through my link tree on my Instagram, which is author underscore WM Walters. And yeah, that's where you can get them. Or if you happen to catch me in person, I'm constantly doing local markets. I did the Moon Market recently and the Vampire Ball recently back in October. So I try to go to a lot of writing events and, conventions and markets. So if you catch me in person, hey, you could get a copy then too.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
I really appreciate you allowing me to do this interview, and I want you to write that book.
Enjoyed this week's episode? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Listen to Magic Meets Melanin on Spotify or YouTube. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Magic Meets Melanin for more fantasy book recs and fun. If you're interested in any of the books discussed today, you'll find links to purchase in the show notes. Until next time, book babes, happy reading!